Well, hey there. I'm Rachel Wojo, and I'm so glad you joined me today. I'm doing things just a little bit differently. Hopefully, you won't hear too much shuffling of papers and that sort of thing, but I am going off script, so to speak, and to my notes because I really want to deliver something special to you this Mother's Day. Mother's Day can be really hard. It can be a hard week. And maybe motherhood didn't look the way that you thought it would, or maybe the child that you prayed for never came. And maybe the child you have is in a very hard place. So maybe even you have a child you raised who isn't around anymore. There are just so many scenarios. And wherever you are today, I want you to know that you are not alone on the journey as a woman, whether you are missing a child, missing your mother, or missing the opportunity to be a mother. I just want you to sit with this question today. And our first segment, the questions in hard spaces, the question is how do you ask God for a miracle when you've been disappointed in the results of your prayer life? And so I have something that I'm super excited about. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see this amazing book I'm holding in my hand, Praying Through Life's Battles 90 Days to Strengthen Your Faith. It's available for pre order right now on Amazon and at Christian Book, as well as probably wherever you buy books. But I'll put the link in the show notes. I will talk more about this later in the episode, but I had to tell you up front because honestly, I couldn't talk about today's topic without telling you that this book is part of the reason that I can talk about it. Today's question again, how do you pray for a miracle when you've felt disappointed in God's answers before? I really believe this is hard. Many of us have prayed something with all of our heart and haven't gotten the answer that we wanted. Whether it was a loved one passing away, what we felt like was way too soon, we wanted more time with them, or whether it was simply not something that God gave us. We had a need, and we went without that need filled. There are just so many situations where we can look at this and say, you know what? I really wanted something different than what God gave to me. And so as we look at this passage of Psalm 78, I wanted to read the words to you from this section because I just really felt like going off script was the best way to share with you this week. Psalm 78. They forgot what he had done, the miracles he had shown them. That's verse 11. Then verse 12. He did miracles in the sight of their ancestors in the land of Egypt, in the region of Zoan. He divided the sea and led them through. He made the water stand up like a wall. He guided them with the cloud by day and with light from the fire all night. He split the rocks in the wilderness and gave them water as abundant as seas. He brought streams out of a rocky crag and made water flow down like rivers. But they continued to sin against him, rebelling in the wilderness against the Most High. They willfully put God to the test by demanding the food they craved. They spoke against God. They said, "Can God really spread a table in the wilderness?" True, he struck the rock and water gushed out, streams flowed abundantly, but can he also give us bread? Can he supply meat for his people? And when the Lord heard them, he was furious. His fire broke out against Jacob, and his wrath rose against Israel, for they did not believe in God or trust in his deliverance. And boy, am I so guilty today of failing to trust that God will deliver. You know, Asaph is recounting in this psalm the story of Israel and what they've gone through. And if you look at the miracle, the part that stopped me this morning in my reading, it arrested me, is when it says, He divided the sea and led them through. This is verse 13. He made the waters stand up like a wall. Most of us have been around church any little bit of time. We've heard the Red Sea miracle story. We've seen Moses in the Exodus, the great movie of old, showing him hitting that water, or showing the Red Sea splitting, I should say. And when we look at that wall, that's the God we're praying to, the God who made water stand up. But when we keep reading in this passage, it gets a little uncomfortable, doesn't it? Because the honesty is that the same people who saw that sea split started to doubt their God. And they said, verse 22, they did not believe in God or trust his deliverance. And I think what's interesting about this is it wasn't that they hadn't seen miracles before. They had, but they forgot the miracles. They forgot them. That's what disappointment does. It makes us forget when we are struggling with the answers that we receive from God and we don't know. We feel like maybe, in our opinion, we would have done something different. We protect our hearts then by not asking God. What feels like wisdom is just a fear to pray and ask the Lord for what we need. So the questions that I ask myself this week, and very deliberately today, are my prayers shaped by what I remember about God? Or are they shaped by the fears that I have in my heart? Are they shaped by what I'm afraid of? The answer to being disappointed in having our prayers answered is not to pray smaller prayers or stop praying. It's better remembering. I am going to dive into this a little bit deeper, but I wanted to have you listen to that Questions in Hard Spaces. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back soon. But after this word from our sponsors, we'll come back and dive in a little deeper. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to that word from our sponsors. And now it's time for the Pray More, Worry Less encouragement segment of the episode. And today's principle is the way we ask God for the next miracle is by remembering the last one. And I want to say that one more time because it can be really tough. The way we ask God for the next miracle is by remembering the last one. If you go back to Psalm 78, verse 13, it says, He divided the sea, He made the water stand up like a wall. Imagine you are walking on either either side. You're walking through that water, and if you have seen that, what would you be thinking? Like, were the fish swimming? Did a little boy wave at a fish? And what kind of prayer would you pray if you saw that and you saw this wall that looked like you were walking by an aquarium window? My daughter and I recently were at the aquarium in Atlanta. And as we looked, we were just both in awe of those huge fish, the shark, the whale that was in there. We were in awe. If you walked through a sea and saw the fish in the wall of the water, just like you were at an aquarium, imagine how you would pray the next time. You would remember that wall of water, and you would pray like you were talking to the God who split the sea right in front of you. But that's not what the children of Israel did. They forgot. Forgetting is what makes our next prayer shrink. Can I be honest with you? I do this. I God has answered big prayers for me. And a few months later, I will have forgotten. I'm in a hard space again. I'm in a a physical struggle, a financial struggle, and I'm praying to God for a miracle, but I'm not really asking Him for the full-blown miracle, right? I still have some doubts. I still have some fears. Remembering is not actually just a sentimental thing. It is spiritual warfare. That's why praying the promises of God is so critical. When I write down what I have done, I am telling my kids the stories. I'm building a case. I'm sharing my testimony. I'm building a case against the fear that is threatening to shrink my prayers. So this week, if you're tempted to pray not at all or pray small, or pray carefully because you don't want to hope too big, then stop and make a memory list first. Write down 5 things where God has shown up for you, 5 times where you knew 100% for sure that this situation would grow your faith and you would remember it forever, but you wrote it down somewhere and now you've already forgotten it and you need to remember it again. Maybe it was just a friend who texted at the exact right moment, and then go back to Psalm 78:13 and say, God divided the Red Sea. He can do that for me. The God who did that is the one you're praying to right now. At one point, when I was in Africa on a missions trip years ago, I remember it was time to go home, and we were in um, waiting at the air trying to get to the airport to get in, and there was a huge traffic jam all around the city. We're in Nairobi, trying to get to the Nairobi airport, and we are dreadfully afraid that we are going to miss our flights. And we had started out way early, but just the congestion and the issues caused major problems getting us to the airport in a timely fashion. And I remember sitting on the third row of that van, right in the middle, and I prayed, Lord, you parted the Red Sea. This traffic is no problem for you. And I prayed it out loud. I'm sure others on the van thought, what in the world is she doing? But I truly meant it from the bottom of my heart that the problem we had right in front of us was not bigger than our God. And I am here to tell you that we managed to meet that plane and get boarded on time and get home, and there was no delay. And I really felt like God answered that prayer right in the moment. Listen to this. In John 11, Martha runs out to meet Jesus after her brother Lazarus dies. And the first thing she says to him is, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And I think that's the way many of us feel when we've experienced loss. And many of us feel that way around Mother's Day, because even if our grief is not associated with the loss, sometimes it's associated with maybe not a death, but the death of a circumstance. Um, I've prayed Martha's prayer more times than I can count, where I've said, Lord, if you, then I. If you, then we. And the greatest disappointments that some of us face are when the people that we love are not healed. My daughter Taylor was not healed on this side of heaven. She died. And that will always be very hard for me. When I look at this miracle that I'm looking at in my hand right now, praying through life's battles. This wasn't written from a platform or from a stage. It was written by a mom who prayed for miracles that I didn't receive. And it was written because even now, I believe that my God can make water stand up like a wall. I believe there are still miracles for me to see in my lifetime. I've seen him do it before, and it wasn't always the way that I ask, but I have seen it. In Daniel 3, there were 3 young men who were standing in front of the fiery furnace, and they said, "We will not bow down. Our God is able to deliver us, and he will deliver us. But if he does not, we will not bow down." And that's the prayer I have had to learn to pray. God can, God will, but if he chooses not to in this lifetime, I trust him. I trust him because a God who spared not his son for me loves me too much. He loves me too much to give up on the best plan for my life. This is the answered prayer. God is always faithful. He is not out of faithfulness. You can still pray for a wall of water, and whatever the answer looks like, he is still good. I told you that at the beginning of this episode that I was holding this book in my hands, Praying Through Life's Battles, 90 Days to Strengthen Your Faith. And this book does not release until August 25th. It's available for pre-order. But I want to say plainly that I never want a podcast episode to just feel like a commercial. And if you're sitting with a disappointment and you're trying to figure out, how do I pray boldly when I have been disappointed in God's answers before? This book is for you. It's full of my prayers where I leaned into the faith that I was holding on to. And I pray, whether you pre-order or not, that today's episode of answering this most difficult question, God, where are you? God, how do I rely on you? How can I expect a miracle when my prayers have gone seemingly unanswered? I pray that today's episode had been encouraging to you, that as you look at the scripture, you might take away one little nugget that is, God, you are someone who makes water stand up in a wall. I know you can do miracles in my life today. And though you may choose not to, I trust that your plan for me is beyond what I can imagine. Until next time, remember, God sees you, he hears you, and he knows your need.